There were three key factors that really led us to Bombora. The first of which is the biggest challenge of working with enterprise companies are the multi-year contracts. When somebody is locked into a 2 to 3 year contract, it's very hard to identify when they're in market for a business change, in that renewal window, if they're outgrowing their current solution or unhappy enough to make a change. So we were largely in the dark on that. The next thing was the earworm, that song that gets stuck in your head for days. Well, we had a stat. So 68% of B2B buyers said that web search was the top resource when making purchasing decisions. This makes sense to me. I'm a millennial. I consult the web every time I make a big purchase. So this made a lot of sense, but this stat was just on repeat in our heads, and we needed to figure out a way to address it. So we figured out lead scoring. Nobody comes to the Braintree website for fun. If they're doing these activities, we need to be talking to them. And so this was working out really well for us. All of a sudden, MQLs are up. Our alignment with sales has never been better. We're high-fiving them in the hallway. Our opportunity rate is up. We were ballers. We solved it. The earworm dissipated. And for a couple months, we were really solid here. And then the earworm came back with a vengeance. Did we just create a self-fulfilling prophecy? 68% of B2B buyers said that they research on the web when making purchasing decisions, not just the Braintree website. So we needed to figure out what was happening here. We were in the dark. And so what are people researching? Where are they researching? Can we lead score the internet? And that was ultimately what led us to Bombora. So immediately I jumped into building our total addressable market and scoring our accounts. Our database had a pretty incomplete view of our total addressable market. So immediately I went into the Bombora database and identified all their large to XXL companies and added them to our TAM. And it was way too many accounts for our BDRs to handle. So then we had to layer on some filtering. So what types of businesses are we great at supporting? What types of industries fit with our ideal customer profile? Then we layered on who looks like our best customers. Then we brought in the Bombora data. Who's currently researching payments processing across the web? Who has a high composite score and total number of topics? From there, we brought in our lead scoring. We built it and it works. Who's engaging with our properties? Who's attending our webinars and looking at our product pages? Then we took the BDRs into account. For our business development reps, or SDRs, as some people refer to them, how many SDRs do we have? How many accounts can they handle at any given time? So this is where we got our first 2 wins. Immediately, we increased the size of our total addressable market, the number of companies that are on our radar, and then also our opportunity rate was up based on this prioritization method. It's up about like 1.4 to 2.4x, depending on the campaign. We also wanted to give this data to sales. This was a wealth of information. We could provide the sales reps with high intent companies and the topics that they're researching. Bombora was gonna illuminate what conversations would be most relevant to each prospect and account. This would take us from here, call this hot lead, to here, call this hot lead who's researching Venmo and integrations. But before we could hand over the raw data, we wanted to create a framework, a way to use this data without feeling creepy or forced. So here's how we did it. We broke up all of our topics into clusters. So we have a cluster around alternative payment methods. This cluster of topics is our competitors. The one shown here are all of our partners. And then for each of these, we have an opening question, an icebreaker. And then we also created about 2 to 3 solutions per topic cluster, so the sales reps could pivot depending on how the conversation went or what the needs of the prospects or accounts had. So we did this, and then we created some reports in Salesforce so that everybody could go ahead and use it. But before we let the sales team run wild, I needed a proof of concept. So I worked with one of the BDRs, and I gave her the account that had the highest composite score and the most number of topics. And she gave them a phone call, no answer. So she left a voicemail, sent an email, and went home for the day. Because they're a global company, overnight, they responded back, your timing is impeccable, which is wild. And they had just started researching payments processors. They wanted a meeting the very next morning. So she was pretty prepared going into that discovery call. She looked at all of their topics and had a couple solutions in her mind, but wanted to hear what they had to say before landing on the most appropriate solution. And later on that day, she put in a $50 million opportunity. That was insane. This was so good for our product adoption. Not only did we prove out that our framework worked, but also we had a high value, viral win story to go along with it. Every sales manager and marketing manager heard about this opportunity before the end of the day. So with that, everybody was pretty pumped about using Bombora. And within about 3 months, we had contributed $800 million to the pipeline that's directly attributed to Bombora conversations.